Hello and welcome to Follow Everton. The year is 2007. Everton are in fifth place. Um, we talk about budgets not having enough, but we're always competitive. We're in FA Cup finals. Oh wait, oh shit! It's 2025. David Moyes has left the club, and he's come back on a 2.5 year contract. It appears, according to David Ornstein and others. Corey, I think you're the least excited of the Everton contingent we have on, but at the same time, I suppose better news than having Dyson in office, huh?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a much better manager than Sean Dyche is. Similar kind of football, both more pragmatic. So it's going to be a nice, easy change going to it's going to be an easy transition going to him. My only real concern is number one is going back to someone, but it's more a case of the long termism. Is this going to be just for 6 months? If it's a 2.5 contract, then I'm very, very skeptical of it or unsure of it because this summer's a really big chance for us to obviously rejuvenate, reinvent, to revolutionise the team. Loads of players out of contract. We're going to need to get essentially half a new squad in. Ideally, I'd like us to do that under a manager that's got a clear identity or someone that's a bit more progressive, just a little bit more. Doesn't need to be tick-a-tacker, by the way. I'm not massively possession-based on what Pep Guardiola football, but I just want something a bit more progressive, maybe just a little bit more, just a little bit more high intensity and pressing on the front foot more than anything. We don't get that as much with Moyes, but look, I'm willing to give him a chance, of course. He's going to be much better than Dyche. I see him as guaranteed safety. Well, not guaranteed, but almost guaranteed safety. It's just the future after this summer is where my concern lies.
Yeah. Now, we'll quickly add Emma, one of our followers here. Contract links mean nothing to the Friedkin group, but I think that's part. There's a lot of different directions we can go, and I think we'll tackle this one later on a little bit more. But I'm not sure I really want to see him fired either. If he comes back, I want him to be thanked for his services and not be as awkward as it was kicking out Dyche, So, yes, contract length doesn't matter, but I really want him to step down gracefully and find the right replacement. And clearly it'll be a little bit different than what happened when he moved to Old Trafford and he was meant to be the Scot to go to Manchester and continue the legacy of Alex Ferguson. It'll be different, coming back. But I don't want him to come back and him to be sacked either.
Yeah, I agree. Just to piggyback on Emma's comment, obviously as part of that, the 2.5 year contract is a little bit more different because it means then there's more to pay out if you do decide to sack him. Hypothetically, I'd have been okay if it was an 18-month one because then we can get rid of him in the summer if we decide to. And I know what you mean in terms of not wanting to sack him, so that makes things a little bit more awkward. But if he's on 18-month contract, it makes things a little bit more smooth in terms of options we can do. Do we, like we mentioned on the potential manager show that we did a couple of days ago, you could move him up into a more executive role, director of football role, have him working behind the scenes. There's rumours of Carsley coming in as number 2 and kind of smoothing that transition. And I think that's a pipe dream, but that would have been a fantastic scenario. The other scenario or the other things that could essentially work in our benefit is if we have a really clear direction from a director of football. If that's Kevin Felwell or if it's someone else, I'm not too bothered as long as they're good at the job. And if they've got a clear direction and they say, we're having these players, this specific style of football, they're getting brought in. That obviously goes against what Moyes typically works with because he likes to be quite hands-on with the recruitment of the team as well. So, look, there's ways that can work around. It's just a lot of things to think about. And yeah, you are right. We don't want to sour anything with Moyes. The way he talks about the club, he loves us, and you don't. It'd be a very, very bad taste if we did that. You can maybe somewhat accept it with Sean Dyche, especially considering what's gone on or what the rumours are of what's gone on. But with David Moyes, yeah, look, it'd be absolutely classless for us to do that to him, despite my comments on him a couple of days ago.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try something a little different for a second here. So I'm actually going to show off Corey's session from the other night, and I'm going to play Chad's reaction to you releasing or having your opinion of if Moyes came in, how would you feel? And then after that, I would like to get Adam's response to what Chad says or to follow up on it.
Oh man, that's like my soft spot. Like I started following Everton under David Moyes, and the idea of him coming back just seems right. It just Everton and David Moyes are, they go together like peanut butter and jelly, or at least that's seemingly where it should be. I hated when he went to Manchester United in the first place. The thing about David Moyes is I think there's some hesitation to want to welcome him back only because it doesn't feel like a fresh step forward. It feels like, would he be a caretaker manager? Does he have new ideas? Is he a modern footballing manager? I think he can be. I think the squad is I think this squad right now is much more capable. Would be more capable under his stewardship. I think there are people here that could play for him now. I would love to see David Moyes come in for the rest of this season and into next, lead us into Bramley Moore, Doc. And as long as there was like some kind of strategic vision for the future from TFG.
All right. So, Adam, how do you feel on that? Does that kind of fit with how you're thinking, or?
First off, welcome everyone to follow Everton. I've just got a word in, so it's been a bit challenge right off the bat. But no, I think for the nostalgia of being brought into Bramley Moore Dock with David Moyes at the helm once again, there is a bit of animosity towards him leaving to Man U, but like everyone associates David Moyes with he did a lot with the recruitment under a very, very small budget. I actually started following Everton as a kid, and so did Chris, but David Moyes was actually at the helm at that point. So I've got a very soft spot for him as well. I actually went to Goodison and met all the players that, we watched that game that he was managing as well. We won. And then that was just an amazing feeling, and just you sat in his chair and whatnot. So I think a lot of people have it's not really a misconception, but it's because a player or the manager has gone to another club that sometimes we get saddened by that, and it hurts. But if he comes back and he actually gets us out of the relegation zone and gives us into Bramley Moore Dock with a lot more stability, and also the recruitment, because the type of players that he brought in, like some of the best players that we've had for Everton to date, have been under his stewardship. So his scouting network is actually quite good, and we haven't really had any managers that have brought in top class players other than really Carlo Ancelotti and James Rodriguez under his stewardship as well. So someone like Moyes is going to steady the ship. He's going to, hopefully get us out of that battle from the bottom. And, we're not really expecting top trophies right now, but he did get West Ham into European football, and they won. So, he has got something of recent to date, and that's something that I think every Evertonian knows about and is sort of looking at as a sign of that's a bit of sunshine. That and the freaking group as well. They've come into Everton, they've taken over. They're not going to just want to go for someone who's just an unknown quantity in the Premier League. They don't want to risk that. It's a big risk, and we could potentially go down. We saw what happened with Bournemouth early on, and we don't want to give. We've only got limited time to the end of the season, and then we can't give a player a manager that sort of opportunity that it could potentially go absolutely side backwards. David Moyes has still got probably a lot of connections at the club, and he's got a lot of stuff that can come in, and he knows the club, he gets the players, he gets the fans, and he knows what we want, and he knows what we want to see is the most important part as well. And he wants, Dyche gave that as well, sweat on the shirt and stuff. But then towards the end, I felt like, I didn't really think it was quite working. And I felt like from what's happened in the freaking group, I think he's had a meeting with them. He's told them that he pretty much can't carry the club anymore. And then they're pretty much going, right, well, we know what we need to do now. So I believe that's what's happened.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. And Corey, I think Adam brought up a few good points here, and I see some comments following up on this. But back in the day, Moyes was involved in the recruitment, but I don't recall. We had Marcel Brands in that role, and now we have Kevin Thelwell. Do we think that era of having the manager trying to be involved in the recruitment, trying to find bargains, is still the case? Do we think that Moyes will be involved in the recruitment, or is that solely Kevin Thelwell? He's here for 2.5 years, but we're trying to move away from these defensive tactics. We're in a way, yes, I like your pragmatism, but we want a more progressive football from the squad as well. So maybe not relying on Moyes for the hiring is the
Yeah,
right
and
call.
I think
I
I
know we
think
got some
I
good players as well, though.
yeah, I
Do you want
think
to
I
go,
think
Adam,
one
mate?
thing. Yeah, a lot of Everton fans are getting upset. I think it's almost split. I don't know if it's a 50-50 split, but I feel like a lot of people are actually upset with the Moyes reintroduction, because what that means is, in a way, it's like, okay, we haven't actually taken a step forward here. We've kind of gone a step back. But by not appointing a manager that's not in never done Premier League managing before, like I think there was a stat that showed the Sir Alex Ferguson and Arsene Wenger and Moyes are like the three top managers that have been at most Premier League game experience in history. Like they've got the most experience. So yeah, I think Moyes was at the club from like 2003 to 2013 or something. So he's had a lot of Premier League games under his belt, and then that's experience right there. Like,
Yeah, I agree. Look, I myself was previously of the thought that you shouldn't go back. You shouldn't go back to a player or a manager because they've gone. You need to move forward. You need to have that kind of mindset of looking forward, not looking back. It does kind of show where we're at, because look, I think all fans, Evertonians, will be realistic and say that we have gone backwards. Under Moyes, we were the best of the rest. We were always the team, just missing out on Champions League football. I think.
Well, do you think that, like, yeah? Do you think like something like what they've done here is getting Moyes back in to steady the ship, so to speak, to get us into Burnley-Moore Dock, see how he goes. If we start doing absolutely amazing, then it's a match made in heaven essentially. But if it does go a little bit pear-shaped, but we do get out of relegation zone, then we can look at alternatives when we've actually got better options for managers that suit the way we want to play and the way the Freakins want to have, like, view us. And Everton fans from that point will probably get to a more of a better understanding as to how we're going to look. And then we're going to have a massive squad overhaul anyway. Like, we've got like 10 to 15 players out of contract. So someone like Moyes with his recruitment staff and the way his scouting network would actually probably be almost ideal to what we need.
Yeah, I mean, it's purely contextual. Like I said, the concern is I'm pretty much on the fence in regards to it, because I think in terms of what's out there, especially what's available, he is a good option. I think he almost guarantees us Premier League safety, survival. It is just a case of, because he will do some good recruitment. I just don't want it to be too pragmatic focused. I want it to. This is why I think there should be a strong sense of identity from the club, whether that comes from the Freaking Group, from the director of football, but that we have to essentially not just focus on pragmatic football, something more positive. The vast majority of the players we've got in, and our strength lies in the defence because of how Deitch has drilled that, because he sacrificed attack and focused on defence. So if we can build on that, and I'm not saying Moyes we're just going to go pure defensive. It's just it's a concern, if you know what I mean. It's something that I'm seriously considering is a possibility. I just don't want us to waste that opportunity. I'm not decrying it as doom and gloom that he's guaranteed to just buy defensive players and do a full Sean Dyche. He probably will try and go attacking. The concern with Moyes is he's never been able to identify a striker. If we look back, I think the Yak was his most successful one. I think we had Lukaku. Was it Lukaku in his last season before Martinez come in?
I believe so.
Yeah,
he was loaned first, and then we bought him permanent off Chelsea, I think.
Yeah. So apart from them two, we've always struggled when identifying strikers. When he went to West Ham, if you look at the strikers, he had Mikel Antonio was a right back who turned into a striker. Scamacca. So he's never been great at identifying strikers. So I mean, what it is quite exciting as well is the future of Beto, because I feel like Beto is more of a Deitch, more of a Moyes striker than a Deitch striker, because he's not a target man kind of. He does like a strong striker, a big striker, but not a full target man like Dom is. He wants somebody who runs the channels, who's willing to
that sounds like Beto to me, doesn't it?
And that's what Beto is. So maybe we can see the best of him. If you remember the way Yak played, he would do the channels, as with Lukaku, and he was never barely playing with back to goal. You were slipping him in, and then at that point, he puts the ball past the keeper, which we see against Peterborough, lower opposition. But that's his forte. So I'm excited to potentially see how that works for him, and if that benefits ourselves as well. I'm a fan of Beto. Maybe he's not got the greatest ability, but I'm also of the belief that he's not been given a fair crack at it, especially in a system that works for him. So I'm happy to see that. Look, if he comes good, that could save us a bit of money in terms of the striking department. So it changes things up, it shakes things up. It's the consideration and things that could happen. I'm concerned as opposed to against the Moyes coming in, if you know what I mean. I'm very much on the fence. I don't know yet.
Yeah. So I think in a lot of ways there are certainly differences, but there's a general perception that it's like Dyche light instead of there's a little bit more attacking flair, closer to the number. The number 10 has a more pivotal role. It was either Tim Cahill or I'm trying to think of a couple others at this moment, but
Fellaini after him, Arteta at times.
Yeah, Fellaini as well. So you're having someone, and maybe this is the opportunity Iliman and Jai is finally going to get to be freed up in that squad, or just some other than Abdoulaye Doucouré, who I hope we don't see in that role. But it ties into something that Peter Duggan brings up here, and I don't want to go fully into watching videos and content that's outside of us, but that's something for others to go have a listen to as well. But if the goal is saying a high intensity and pressing, we've seen that from Everton, but we haven't consistently seen that under Dyche. There have been periods where we pressed in. You know what? We scored against Burnley, that shocking borderline own goal setup where like DCL chases, kind of traps him into that block. That was us tactically pressing. We don't see that this year. We play a bit basically scared as if we're versing the Champions League finalist every single match. So we're not doing that. But we've seen it in the past, which also means Dyche teams should know how to play under Moyes relatively quickly.
Yeah.
So did you guys remember when Lampard was in charge, like the first 10, 15 minutes of every game, it was just full high pressing, just absolutely ridiculous. And then we just sort of fell flat and kind of steadied into the game. Like that's pretty much what he did every game. That was his tactic.
I think in terms of he's not completely high pressing, he's not completely high intensity football, but this is where I believe, especially in the short term, it is positive. It probably is the right thing to do very much in the short term, because what Everton are missing, they're solid defensively, they're missing tempo. Number one, on the pitch to affect the game tactically. Number two, for motivation on the players because they look bereft of confidence and inspiration. And number three, in the crowd, because the crowd aren't going, the tempo's flat, the atmosphere's flat, and then teams can come onto us more and more. And number two, the ability to attack. He's a little bit more attacking than Dyche. He will have some identity, and he will press more than Dyche. He's not massively high intensity, but he will press more. So with the solid defence that we've got, we may concede maybe a couple more goals, but you can see it lifting Goodison Park. You can see it playing on that, and Moyes will do that because he has the identity of the club. So I think they're the little differences between us looking absolutely dross and us being able to, I'm not saying we're going to fly up the table and get the Champions League, but it's enough to get us enough solid performances, enough wins to get us safe. And that's it. It is small things, but the things that you never would have seen with Dyche because it's purely missing from his mentality. So I think them little changes that he'll bring in, it's not going to be a tactical masterclass, but them little changes are what's going to be very important to what this club needs, and just to basically get us winning more games.
Yeah. So I'm going to do we're certainly going to be Moyes heavy. This is going to be a little bit of a trip down memory lane. Corey and Adam, we're going to go back to, I've got some SofaScore lineups from various matches that Everton have played in the past that I think either we're going to remember or the first one will not be one that sticks out. It's solely for the point of, hey, if we verse a relegation fodder squad in the time that I was looking here, Blackburn Rovers were relegated that season. Everton played away from home and were able to work through results. But looking at some of the formations that he has used with Everton players, used players out of position, and how he actually set up the squad back then, this is the first one. I will talk to it quite briefly. So Johnny Heitinger, for a period there, they wanted to bring him into the midfield. I think they were short some players, but Heitinger basically just played block, which would be the role of Idrissa Gana Gueye. Phil Neville is a little bit different, but in a way, the Ashley Young of that squad. He would jump around position to position. He wasn't the captain in Ashley Young's case, but just a full-blown professional that knew how to do a job and had a good connection with the manager. Then you had the likes of Baines, Jagielka, Distan. Okay, Baines is clearly a different story to Mykolenko, but Jagielka and Distan, we have something remotely similar in how we're performing with the spine of that team right now. The big key thing for me was Maro and Fellaini in that 10 role. A very different look than what we'll have in our squad now.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I'd say, one of the noticeable differences there, because I think in the midfield we've got a very narrow team there, and I do believe that we were down a number of players. That's a very much a weakened team. But Fellaini got very, very close to Anichebe. When the striker would go to the channels and work the channels, he was a hard worker. Anichebe, he's physical. Fellaini would then drop into that central role, which I think it's been switched around on the Dyche, where Calvert-Lewin stays central and Decore was meant to run off, but it's just left us missing in midfield, especially if he's not, if Decore's just not on it. And then the next part is, if you look at the defence, and this is what we always had. Well, it's what we have for the large part under Moyes was, if you look at the defence, you got two centre-backs, but the full-backs, one goes forward ever so slightly. Phil Neville crosses the halfway line, which Young didn't, but he would go and he would more cross from deep. And Leighton Baines would get forward quite a lot. He would use the inverted winger, which in this case is Barkley, would often be Pienaar, to cut inside. He would use that space to whip a ball in. We've had two full-backs who don't want to go forward and don't go forward. Even a lot of the best teams, if you look at Manchester City, at times what they do is they make sure that one of the defenders, one of the fullbacks, sits in and either makes a free, or if the defensive midfield drops back to make a free, he will go forward, but not too high. They have what you'd say is a fullback and what you'd say is a wing back. So it looks unbalanced in terms of when you look at it on paper, but how the team actually works. One will sit back and allow the other one to press even higher, stretch the team and get the ball in. He'd done that at West Ham as well, where you'd have one fullback who wouldn't be too adventurous, and then you'd have the one on the other side who would get forward a lot more. So, for example, your Cresswell would get forward and get wide. Kufal would stay back because he can drop in as somewhat of a free defensive wide defender, or the other way around. So I think that's something we'll see, which hopefully will give us an extra dimension going forward. It gives you an extra man in attack, while also protecting against the counter attack.
Yeah, and I think defensively, what I thought was really interesting here, Neville didn't charge up, go and bomb down the lines the way Baines did. If we have anything remotely like what we saw against Peterborough, and when we get to see the likes of Nathan Patterson coming on, that is the Baines equivalent. Clearly not the same class, but what you'd have basically is a defensive three. Neville is, in this case, would basically jump to left back and be Mikalenko. Now, yes, it's a makeshift squad, but right now, Everton have a makeshift midfield. We have someone that can be a form of playmaker. Oro Mangala is not Mikel Arteta, of course, but we have someone who can kind of do distribution and sit back. And then we have, clearly, Heitinger was kind of a makeshift player, and Ghana Gay's aging too. So we've got holes in the midfield, and we lack wide players with pace. But I just wanted to show something like this setup, because what we're going to look at next was a match down memory lane that I think a lot of us are going to remember, was this match. I think it was a couple seasons later on where we had the 4-4. But Adam, do you remember this match much, or when we basically went to Man United and did this come from behind 4-4 draw?
I don't remember it. No.
Was that the Jelic header from a really tight angle?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think Pienaar got one, and Fellaini got one.
Fantastic header that.
But this is a trip down memory lane too, because honestly, this is part of why I enjoy thinking about Moyes, is what we had these periods where Jelic was that striker. He had one season for us where he just kept knocking everything in, and we finally had someone, and he fell off a cliff real fast, But that period here, again, now we've got Jags and Heitinger, so again, a steady back four. The Tony Hibbert of today is now Mikalenko, and we had this down at left back. But again, we're having not blinding pace on the wings, but I don't think that, again, availability, it just wasn't there. But we were able to manufacture and play against an excellent Man United squad at that period of for them.
And the way these players played, by the way, in that game, if you remember it, it's not very Moyes-like, but they passed the ball around. They were quite close to each other, because if you look at all five of their midfielders play central. Yeah. Yep. In terms when it comes to midfield, even Pienaar, who's probably the widest of of the five, his game is very much coming inside. He's not a pacey wing merchant. He likes to come inside and likes to affect the game there. And that's what was happening, was all three of these, although Fellaini would push forward and put on pressure on the defensive line, all five of them would get close to each other and pass the ball around. It would then leave just that tiny bit of space, because what you're doing is you're overloading, and this is what we hear all the time in football now, is overloading, to either over-commit the opposition team to create space elsewhere, or just to have the opposite numbers and the greater numbers and get through them. And that's what we did, and that's what led to that ball over the top. To Jelavic, we played quite compact. Their defence in their midfield tried to outnumber us as well, press on the ball, and that left space, which meant that Jelavic could nick behind him, and the ball obviously lofted in. He was able to get his head onto that. So there are different ways he can play, because he will mainly focus on overloads centrally, and then allow obviously your wide players to give that extra bit of width. So when you've overloaded centrally and you commit the defensive side, your players who are going to be able to whip that ball in, and that's what led to Baines having so many chances, because Pienaar would come in, create the overloads in centrally, narrowly, and then that create that space. He can whip a ball in, and because you've already got 3-4 men centrally, higher up the pitch, you've got men closer to the box then who are willing to, like, the more men you've got in the box, the more the higher odds of scoring from across.
Yeah, and I think right now, what this is also showing is this was not an ideal lineup at all to have a lack of pacey wide players. Osman is a really clever dribbler on the ball, will find space, but he's a lot more comfortable central. Pienaar is a natural wide player, but reminds me a lot of Iliman and Jai, actually. So we have one quasi-winger here, and then we have a whole bunch of central midfielders, and he was able to get results away against an excellent Man United squad because the team were behind him, and the likes of Fellaini and Jelavic were scoring goals. I suppose we don't have that kind of form right now. What I'll do next is look at one more down memory lane. This one will hurt a little bit more. This was the FA Cup final, and how we set up. Again, we brought Cahill back. We scored early, and Saha was on form. But we had, again, quite a lot of defensively. We had Yobo, Lescott, and Hibbert. So 3 players that would stick back and did the battling, and then you had one player bombing on. So really, I guess my first question is, do we think Nathan Patterson will take that mantra of the one fullback that bombs on?
I believe so.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, likewise. I just wanted to quickly bring up something that Peter brought up. Can I?
This one?
Here we go. No, the one about Alan Ivory.
Alan
Irvin.
So Alan Irvin. Let's see if I can
about the
back
training
find it
coach.
quickly.
Yeah,
so
mate, I'll find it for you. I've got it here.
Actually,
Yeah, there you go.
Family relative. Yeah.
I believe Alan Irvin's
family relative, and he's actually passed away sadly. So yeah.
My condolences, mate.
So yeah, bit of sad news there. So yeah, we my dad was is my dad's cousin. So yeah, we that was a bit of a sad time. So unfortunately, he will not be training.
Yeah, there's been no announcement, has
Keep
there?
going, Chris.
Sorry, mate.
All right, keep going.
It looks like
Chris,
Adam's cutting out. I wasn't saying anything. Go ahead, Adam.
I was going to say that obviously there's been no announcement in terms of who his coaching staff will be. A lot of his previous coaching staff, like Adam mentioned, Alan Irvin unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, wasn't it, Adam, I believe? And then
last year.
Was it last year?
We're talking Ian, weren't we, Adam?
I think it was last year. Yeah.
And I think the likes of Steve Round, he is still an assistant manager. I think he is now moved abroad to manage as well. I think Steve Round. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. I remember seeing he moved with. I'm pretty sure he's with the next Chelsea manager. I could be wrong if anyone wants to correct me, but the vast majority of his backroom staff at Everton haven't worked under him for a while. So it'll likely be anyone he's got from West Ham would potentially join him. I could see former Everton players come in. I think Rooney's a good shout. I don't think Big Dunk would, but I could see Wayne Rooney coming in maybe as a number 2. I think Big Dunk's attacking coaching maybe a little bit more outdated now, but what Rooney could provide as a coach one-on-one with our strikers would be great if we could ever get him in.
So as we migrate through my set of screenshots of old lineups, what we'll do now, so that was 3 different, one generic match, one basically against a relegation fodder, a squad that's out of shape and grind out a result. We've seen similar with a out of shape or some players unavailable to him and grind out a result in a match like against United. And here, how we set up against Chelsea. But if we look at what he's done more recently, and we'll go through his entire record as a manager here after we've looked at the lineups. So I was trying to find one result because it took me a while actually in the recent seasons he was a West Ham manager where he got an upset against the big teams. This is the only one that really stood out. I think it was like a 2-0 win for West Ham, this one here in 2023. So in this case, we had Souček and Mavropanos scored away at Arsenal, and this is just when they started. Arsenal threw away their title lead against City, I think the first time.
Yeah.
That was a very strong West Ham team.
It is. Especially, obviously, Jared Bowen is essentially, what was he, like a false 9? James Ward-Prowse playing quite high up there as well. I would have thought he would have played like a 4-3-3 instead, because he's not really an attacking midfielder, is he? I thought he played deeper than that. If anything, it would have been Souček who played behind the striker, similar to the Fellaini role.
Yeah, and like basically, if this was,
sorry, if we're seeing Bowen in a false 9, do you reckon he could potentially put Ndiaye in a false 9?
I could see it. I certainly could see it working. I think it's probably something he may tinker around with. I'd probably see more than Jai out wide because he's been very successful then if we can get some more support out wide, or maybe in a number 10 role. But I could certainly see him tinkering with it if he sees what's happened is not working, especially if Brozier goes back to Chelsea if his injury is as bad as we believe it is.
Yeah, what I could actually also see is potentially the Ashley Young spot in the lineup goes to, and I think Duggan is saying that on here as well. Maybe Mikalenko gets a bit of a rest, and we have Ashley Young at left back, Patterson now at right back. And then what that does is you have the Emerson, which was what we were saying before, Leighton Baines, one player that can bomb on. That's going to be on the right-hand side. And then we have, yes, we don't, in West Ham's case, they didn't have a lead striker. They didn't have Antonio in this one. They had a false 9 in Bowen. I really don't see Ndiaye playing that role. I mean, he could. But what I would imagine is Ndiaye plays central. Maybe Harrison comes out to the left. And then we're not sure who fits that right midfield spot. Maybe it's Lindstrom. Or if we get McNeil back, then things could get more interesting. And then you have Beto as the lead striker. To me, that seems more what I'm going to expect. And then the same central midfield pairing of Mangala and Ghana Gay. And then this would be the 4-2-3-1 we'd be looking at.
Yeah, I agree. I could potentially see him swapping Idrissa Gana Gay out for James Garner when he comes back as well. I think he would absolutely love a play like James Garner. More of a deep line playmaker who can drop deep, collect the ball and play it off. He likes to have at least one player who can pass the ball from deep. Mangala's not bad on the ball, but I'd say Garner's the better passer of them three. Yeah. So I could see him when he gets fit having a very important role in this in a David Moyes team.
So it looks like Ryan might be with us. Might just be audio only, but Ryan, welcome.
Thank you for having me on.
Okay, and we will continue with follow Everton content.
Can you hear me
live? Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry, I can't go on audio. I've got the little baby in my hands. Yeah, you've covered a lot of things. I mean, I just summarised my thoughts on Moyes' return first, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think for any Evertonian aged 25 to 40, he brings a sense of relative comfort after years of, well, he's been gone as long as he was here originally. 12 years he was here, 12 years he's been gone. But I think he brings you a sense of comfort after all this turmoil. And that's something I can get behind. But he's really now entrusted with the biggest job of his career, in my opinion, because it's the final 6 months.
Well, he's gone.
At Goodison Park.
Oh, he's back.
He's back.
It's the final 6 months at Goodison Park. The first transfer budget Everton have had of any significance in at least 5 seasons. And the first 2 seasons in the new ground where building sponsorships, naming rights and everything is pivotal. And he has got such a big job on his hands there. But my questions are, well, first of all, this isn't the same Everton he managed before. The whole culture around the club is not the same. The standards are in the mud. It's almost worse than when he first took over in that regard, to the point where we've been a laughing stock for 12 years. I wouldn't say we were a laughing stock. We just had a poor team when he first came in. We've been a laughing stock for a while. The culture is, as I say, not there. The fans are obviously more frustrated because we've had all these years of hell and 4 consecutive relegation battles. By the way, I'm not going to be on this long because this baby doesn't want to keep her dummy in and she's going to start screaming at me.
Yeah, just like the Everton fans spitting their dummies. Hopefully, that'll be next season, not this season. Huh?
What was I going to say? Yeah, and also the way Moyes scouted and bought his businesses, he didn't have a director of football the first time round, so there's another thing. Now he's got Kevin, yes man, Thelwell there. So he's got a director of football to compete with. Then he's also got the scouting processes. Now he used to famously say, I went 28 times to watch Jolie Lescott in person. Mate, you're not going to have 5 minutes to do that. It's all database now. So any chance you could
someone could send him a video on X and he could
for
just swipe his phone.
You take it just for 2 minutes. Just thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so it's all database now. It's not like you go and sit in the stands of a League One match and scout players. You'll have it all. Every information is out there on every player, and it's kind of who's got the best negotiators. I don't think Everton have got great negotiators. They may have now, but they never had. So they're my thoughts. Mm-hmm. Brings a sense of comfort. But also at the same time, it's not the same club, not the same players, not the same ethos, not the same scouting processes. And so you've got a lot of things to consider there, but it's the biggest job, as I say, to see out Everton final 6 months with honour, bring in the new stadium and deliver. But I think David Moyes is pragmatic, but I also think he does play attacking football. I don't know whether nonsense about defensive football. He knows how to play attacking football, particularly in the home games. It's all about getting 3v2 and 4v3 situations on the wings to get to the byline, to create good angles, to bring the ball back in for runners late and players in the box. What we may see if he goes back is the opposite winger tucks in. The opposite fullback also tucks in, but in a defensive position. So, for example, Mykolenko would join and make a back 3, whereas the right back would bomb on. And there'd be one pivot in front. He used to play a 4-1-4-1 quite a lot, although it would morph into a 4-2-3-1. You'd have one player sitting in front of a back 4, but when we were attacking, so imagining this, just to come back forward now, Garnagay sits in. Mykolenko also tucks in, narrow, and that gives you kind of like a pivot of 4 players, and then everyone else is bombed forward. Patterson high and wide. And Dye wouldn't stick to the left. He'd be tucking in to central. We'd be playing down one flank. And then someone like Doucouré would be running into the box late, and he'd be trained, hopefully, to time his runs. So that's a bit of a monologue there. But I think he will work with the players he's got. But I think he's no wet lettuce. He'll come in and he'll see the imposters that are there. And the imposters are very evident to me. They're at left back. They're at right back. There's a few of them. There's a few imposters in different positions that he needs to turn out.
Hey Ryan, just
go ahead, Adam.
One of your last notes there. He's got players to deal with. Like you know the likes of like Coleman and Baines are still there at the club presently. Like Coleman's still playing. You know, he's obviously injured right now, and you've got Baines coaching the under-18s and stuff. So these guys, they were under his stewardship before. Like, they've worked with him in the past for years and years. They've pretty much dedicated almost their entire footballing career to him. And then he's got you were saying before about the comfort and whatnot. But he's also going to have the knowledge, and Coleman can definitely be that person, and Baines, and saying what's happened since he left, basically, and what's happened to the club that they love so much. And that's, I think, it's going to be quite powerful when he gets back. He's going to have the likes of Coleman and Baines there to basically fill him in on what's happened, where they think personally it's gone wrong, and then basically what they can do to fix it. Like, between the three of them, there's obviously going to be more to help out and assist. And, you've got the more statistics now, which weren't there before previously. So like you said, the scouting network, he's going to have quicker data, more accessible. Who knows what he's going to be able to do with that once he can actually look at it all. I have to go and physically sit and stand and watch it for 3 or 4 times a week. So I think that's actually a bit of an important point there to note as well. Like, just having those guys still there at the club since he left, like, they've still been there. They've watched it all going through. They've watched all the managers. They know what's happened. They know how we feel about it all. And I can't imagine him not wanting to fix it.
Make no mistake, he's nearly had the job 3 times before, and he'd actually agreed to become the Everton manager just before Carlo Ancelotti got sacked. So he'll been following Everton, no pun intended. He'd have been watching games for a while, and I'm pretty sure he hasn't stopped supporting the club, and following it. It's just he's been professional. He's been elsewhere, so he'll know what's gone on in terms of that. For people in football will have been talking about everything, the circus. I'm sure he knows Sean Dyche very well. He may even have spoken to him on the phone. I wouldn't be surprised if he has touched base with him. But yeah, he should lean on that kind of Baines, Coleman. But I think he should also speak to fans in and around the city when he's out and about. I think he should say what do you think's gone on. I genuinely think he should. But if he asks me what's gone on, with now, I think you can harp on about the past that it's not really relevant. I think in the future and now it's where we need to fixate. I'd say you need to bin off Mikalenko and Patterson and all these imposters that and listen, a spade is a spade. If you go and sign a player on loan like Lindstrom, who scored no goals and made no assists last season and a whole season at Napoli, and then you think he's suddenly going to turn up and hit the ground running at Everton, where you can't hit a barn door with a banjo at the best of times. A spade, he'll see through it straight away and he'll go, nah, not got the quality, not got the footballing intelligence, not got the good attitude, not got the work ethic, and he'll turf them out. And I hope that he's given the summer to do it. But one thing I'll say is we've never seen Moyes with money. He's never had money. And he's got a hell of a job to do.
And I will add, I think, in addition to all the responsibilities Moyes is adopting. Oh, okay. Go ahead. Go ahead, Adam.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, just a quick one. I don't think I've ever seen Sean Dyche put his hands around a player, or talk to him before the game, or he comes off the pitch. He's done a good job. Yeah, a bit of a pat on the back sort of deal. Like, Moyes will look a player in the eye, tell him something, and he'll get more out of him, like an emotional response.
I mean, Patterson got his hand around his face. Dyche put his hand around him, but he got him around his face. He missed him in Portugal. Anyway,
I don't know whether that's completely true. The reports were for long periods that Dyche was well liked. He seemed on the touchline to be giving his players support and encouragement on a match-by-match basis. And my concern about Moyes is every time I've seen him, he looks like a washed-up old man. Is this guy still got it? Is he going to motivate people? My worry is his methods are possibly going to be outdated with the scouting and recruitment. His style of football may not have progressed in modern 2025, where it's more possession-based and transitions and counter-attacks, and not, I'm going to have 7 behind the ball and a hoof foot long, or try and have slow possession around the middle third. So can he do it? It's a big question. I really hope he does. And I think he'll get more time than other managers, because I'd say 75% of people are Evertonians are behind the appointment, and I'd say 25% of them aren't. The 25% of them aren't, I'd probably say, are a little bit older than us 3, counting Friedkin in there. A little bit older than us 3, and maybe have seen Everton win trophies. So our standards are in our 30s are, relative to what other people have witnessed. I'd snap your hand off for 5th place right now.
Does it not
And
seem
also,
a little?
I think people would pay more for their season ticket if it was going in the transfer kitty and it was better players. That's all I got to say, by the way.
Oh, good. Do you have any worry, by the way, that we're basically just doing what Crystal Palace did with Roy Hodgson? We're bringing this aging player back, like manager. He might be a flash in the pan, and then you're stuck with him for a bit, and then you just have to move away.
Difference is Moyes has shown in his previous stint that he still can coach to a high level. He's still a more than capable coach in the Premier League, whereas Roy Hodgson has always been at that level.
Yeah. So what I wanted to bring up here, I'll see if I can sneak us all in the right way. I'm trying to sneak us on the table. All right. No, that didn't work. Apologies. I'm trying to get all four of us on. All right.
That's it.
So this is another one I brought up of the managers who are near the bottom of the table. And I think we've got basically looking at Wolves, Ipswich, and ourselves, and the managers and their performances and their typical points per match. So I'm not sure. It looks like my screenshot scrunched up a little bit. But we talked about Moyes. He came in at Preston North End. We know he was here for a whole lot of time with us. He played 518 matches. We had 221 wins, 163 losses, 134 draws. So a little over 1.5 points a game all up. He went to Man United, as we know, very short-lived. Then he had that stint in Spain at Real Sociedad, and then Sunderland. He came back to the Premier League and he got relegated with them. So that was a scary moment to say, can he win a relegation fight? I'm not sure if he did one at West Ham. Early on at Everton he did, but the Sunderland one does scare me a little. And then he came to West Ham, had 2 stints, and the second one, with a point per match of 1.53, basically emulates what we did when he was at Everton. So if you can assume that his points per match that he did at Everton and he did in his most recent stint at West Ham is true, we're on 17 points and we've played a match less than everyone else. So therefore, if that was to remain true, irrespective of all position, we're talking at about 46 points. But yeah, I'll stop there for a minute and get you guys any opinions on his trajectory or career so far, now that we have it broken down here.
Yeah, so, I mean, in regards to what he's got, look, the points he's got there is very much solid mid-table, lower part of the top half of the table. Yeah, look, Sunderland is a big, massive mark on that. Sociedad's quite low as well. They're the 2 biggest blips in his career. I know people call it to Manchester United, but I think if you compare them to other managers since, no one else has done much better than he has either, at least league form wise. And what I tend to do is look at it overall. Overall, it looks solid. It looks like somebody's going to keep us steady. And you've got to break it into sections. So look, you've got his Everton era, okay. You've then got the post-Everton era, and then you've got the West Ham when he's come back in. At first, he struggled. Yeah, then that season he was there first with West Ham. Wasn't the greatest, but West Ham were a team that weren't in the greatest of form either. So he was pretty much not improving them, not making them any worse. And then as he's come back in a second time, and he's had more time with them, he's got them better and better. Consecutive top half finishes, consecutive European finishes as well, and of course a European trophy. I don't know how many clubs have had consecutive European finishes since us. A lot of other teams have had a European finish and dipped out kind of thing. So apart from the middle part of his career, which doesn't look the great, and I will concede that I don't think he's been terrible at Manchester United comparatively. He looks very solid. The one I would say, Vitor Pereira, he's always been at top clubs within their respective leagues, but these are leagues which are very much nowhere near as competitive as the Premier League.
Right.
Fenerbahce, the Turkish league, there's three teams there, and a couple of teams that can challenge, but really it's not as competitive. Al Shabab are by and far the greatest team in the Qatari league as well. Potentially, you'd probably say the Brazilian league of Flamengo would have been,
and Corinthians as well. Yeah,
would have been its toughest, most competitive league. Kieran McKenna is the most impressive one because at Ipswich Town, look at his points per game, and that's with obviously the games he's had in the Premier League. He's gone up 2 divisions. He's fantastic at Manchester United in the youth system. He's coached under some fantastic managers, same as Michael Carrick, and he's got them playing far and above where he's brought them. He's done what Moyes has done previously and dragged players up.
Yeah, and what I was careful with here for the Ipswich points per match, because that included multiple promotions in a row. I did not want to say he's got a point per match of 1.84 for Ipswich, because all of a sudden, then what you're really saying is he's got to replicate that in the Premier League. So my points projection was based on his Premier League points per game, and that's why I kept it at 31. I was trying to normalize it. It's a little bit tricky, but Everton and West Ham for Moyes and Ipswich based on what they've seen, but there is clearly improvement coming. And as you mentioned, the Wolves manager, he's been around a lot of places. He was at Porto, did quite well there. But again, if you have Benfica, Sporting, and Porto, the 3-club league, really. Olympiacos are a huge team. Fenerbahce, one of the main 3 with Galatasaray, and I'm forgetting the third there from and Besiktas. So there's only 3 really that stick out to me in Turkey. Then he was in Shanghai. He was in like League 3 of Germany, I think. And he was in Brazil for a bit and Qatar. So his points per match projection, it was really hard for me to get something. To say they get all the way up to 50 was a stretch, but I wasn't sure what teams to cherry pick out or not. But he does have quite a good points per, and we've seen a very good response from him so far in those matches. So that's something to say that potentially they pull away if we're not careful. And it's up us v Ipswich unless Leicester with Rui Van Nistelrooy really get going.
Yeah, I can't see that happening with Leicester, but it's still a fear, isn't it? We can't be complacent in that. The hard work starts now, and no doubt he'll do his interviews today. He'll take training today. There'll probably be a lift at the club, maybe apart from a couple of players. But he will be strict. I wouldn't say a full iron fist, because he's very much a you work for me, I work for you. I think he, like Ryan mentioned, he creates that kind of atmosphere within the club. So hopefully he does do that. I must say I do really like the look of Kieran McKenna as a manager. But that's by the by. This is a Moyes show.
Yeah. So Adam, I know it's probably hard for you to, like, if you're on your phone, it might be hard to catch all the numbers here, but yeah, we're basically. Do you have any thoughts on?
I'm sort of just getting the general gist of it.
Yeah, but I guess based on how Wolves have performed and Kieran McKenna at Ipswich, how comfortable are you? Are you really comfortable? Are you? Well, we should be fine, right? Where are you at?
I think. I was going to say Dyche because I was so used to saying it in previous streams, but Moyes has got that steadiness and he's got the experience, high Premier League sort of experience that I don't think the other 2 have, and I think that's going to be very important if it gets to a relegation battle. I think he's going to know in-game better decisions as to how to get over the line, get a 1-1 draw if need be. Or get that extra goal or push. He probably, I haven't seen a huge amount of West Ham matches, but they did win a European trophy with him under the helm. So he has shown progression. West Ham were also a very high pressing team. They had a lot of good players that he's got. They were doing a lot of nice football in the midfield as well with Azpilicueta. So he does have that eye for talent, and I still think currently he's still got that eye for the talent. And I, with all the new statistics and his scouting network, I'm sure he should be able to do something at Everton. And I think like Everton fans, again, for what I said before, there is and Brian mentioned as well, there's a comfort in him coming back, but there's also a bit of a oh shit, what happens if gets dicey, and is he the guy that's going to be forward thinking? He's going to play attacking football. He's going to just start blazing over teams 5-0. That are to the lower to the league. If you start versing teams that are higher, then we might be in trouble. So yeah, I think he, like what he's shown at West Ham, like he can steady the ship. You know, it's not going to be absolutely extraordinary by any means, but you know, we're not going to be pulling up stumps or anything. But I think if you give him the time and we get into Burnley Dock and he studies it, and then we can potentially look at something that's a little bit more progressive and a manager that's going to bring us that sort of, because Moyes will probably, like Dice said, he's probably go to the freaking group. Look, I've kind of done everything I can. I bring you into Burnley Dock. You're still in the Premier League. Like, let's just sort of see what we can go from there. Like, you know, if he's proved himself that he's still got it, then he might keep his job for longer. But potentially the freaking group, you've seen what they can do, what they've just done to Dice, so you know what they're all about and what they've been doing at Roma as well. So they're not afraid to do anything if they feel it's necessary. So, you know, once there are a few more managers that play that are more fitted for our style and what we want, I think you'd probably see a trigger pulled when necessary.
Yeah, and burning the fan favorite players and managers is a strategy that the Freaking Group have dabbled in. They fired one and they've brought another legend back, a famous manager, to Roma, and they're doing the same here. And hopefully, what we really want, honestly, it's Moyes' game to play for the next until the end of the season. And then he's involved in the transition strategy for the better part of 2 years, bringing in people, determining with the Freaking Group who should be taking over Everton now. And once he fixes the cultural ship that's been avoided. But the other reality is no manager in their right mind is accepting a 6-month deal and being told to F off, basically. So we kind of know that we have him for 2 years. I don't want to see him making tactical decisions of 2.5 years, but really happy to see him back over. So as long as we stay up, it'll get real interesting for the next few off seasons and trades and everything like that.
Yeah, and just FYI, like I definitely think Moyes is a step up from Dyche. He's proven to be more capable and more qualified and more suited to our club. And yeah, he's obviously done a decent job at West Ham. So yeah, it's definitely a step in the right direction. Something that's going to steady the ship a bit more, and it might make a few more Everton fans a little bit more excited to go and watch a game rather than watching Dyche ball.
Yeah. And for those that we haven't set up the show for tomorrow, but Adam's out on site here in Australia, so we have a time window that are basically exactly like we did today. We're going to set up a show talking about, now that we know that Moyes is in, and some of the recent rumblings and leaks or opinions on who might be available in the transfer window. Adam and I, and potentially some others, will talk more to how our team would potentially shape up and what a transfer window would look like. So we haven't really touched on that too much, but keep an eye out for that tomorrow.
Spot on. And also as well, just a little heads up for everyone, we are only 35 subs away from 3,000 followers. So if everyone who hasn't yet, if you could please like, subscribe, really do appreciate it. We've been doing bigger and bigger content lately, especially with the big news that's been coming on, coming out of the club of late. So it just allows us to be a bit more in depth in terms of the information that we can provide for you, and just try and provide better entertainment and just better analysis for all you Evertonians and all our supporters there. So like and subscribe, we really do appreciate it. And we hope everyone enjoys their weekend.
And Chris can make more spreadsheets that look almost perfect, and then they reformat it after I put it up. So yeah, follow Everton official. I started adding the logo so no one can copyright us.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah. Thanks for getting up, Corey. And at your time, you got up. I know it was early, so it's normally what me and Chris do, or late at night. So cheers. Thanks for that.
No worries. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Up the toffees.
Up the toffees.